Welcome to my tiny YouTube studio and creative space. If you've been following me for a while, you've seen any of my content over the last few years, you've definitely seen this shop before. One of the things I always get complimented on though is how good and professional my videos look. So today I want to do a little tour of my office space and my small YouTube studio. Originally when I built this space, it was designed for gaming and Twitch style content, so it was set up a little different. I had 3 monitors instead of the 2 which I have now, and I had 4 cameras at one point. Over the years I've leaned a little bit more towards edited content on YouTube and TikTok and stuff, so the design has kind of developed and evolved over time to what it is now. I adore making this type of content and posting videos online, but something I really struggled with was the setup time to create these things, so I wanted to make a space that I can kind of just walk into, turn a few things on and be ready to go straight away. One of the main challenges I had with this space though was the actual size of the room. The room itself is only 8 foot by 8 foot, which really is very limiting on space, so I've had to get a little bit creative with how I've set it out and how I store things. The first one being the camera position and lens choice. The first thing I do when I go into a small space and I want to make it feel bigger and have more depth is put the camera as close to the corner of the room as possible and shoot into the opposite corner. That way you get depth from the other walls and you're not like flat against a flat wall, so I've done that, as well as using a relatively wide lens. I'm using the Sigma 16mm f1.4, which is an amazing lens. I have it attached to my Sony a6600, and because it's f1.4, that means I get a lot of depth between me and the back wall, because all of here is blurry and I'm in focus, so the room feels and looks a little bit bigger than it actually is. As I said, my main camera for this setup is a Sony a6600. I do own a second camera, which is this one, the Sony a7 III. However, I choose to use the a6600 instead as my main camera for this because, well, it's in good light, so I don't really need the full frame sensor, and also it has a flip screen, so it allows me to look at myself and see what I'm doing when recording videos. Speaking of being able to see myself, because this used to be a live stream setup, I have the a6600 still attached to my PC via a capture card, so that not only can I see myself on the screen in front of me, I also can see myself to the monitors to the side of me. That comes in super handy when creating these videos because the monitor on top is great for framing, but I can't always tell if I'm in focus or if there's certain things in shot that I don't want it to be, so having a large 27-inch monitor version of the footage really helps. I know a few of you out there will be asking what's inside my PC and how I run all this stuff with it, but my PC isn't exactly anything fancy. It's still decent, but it's not top of the range. I've currently got a Ryzen 3900 in it with a GTX 1080 Ti inside a cheap NZXT case, which isn't exactly the best, and I really want to upgrade this stuff, but as we all know, everything's been very expensive over the last few years. It's like double, even triple the price of what it should be, so I refuse to upgrade it until prices get a little bit more normal again. Anyway, back to this creative space, and let's talk about the lights that I use now. Most people in a space like this, when they're live streaming or creating YouTube videos, normally use something small and easy to use, like a LED panel, something like an Elgato key light. I bought one of those thinking it would be great, started using it, and then realized it wasn't really for me. The light is too small, creates too harsh shadows, and I just don't like how it looks on my face. Plus, with something like that, it's only really useful around my desk, so I wanted something a little bit more versatile, so instead I opted to get a Godox SL60W, which is an amazing bright light. This is currently only at about 20%, and as you can see, it's really bright on my face, but I've got a nice large softbox attached to it. It is a aperture lantern, which looks like a Chinese lantern, but is about 5 times bigger, and also has a black wrap thing around it, which allows me to control the light more, so I can just have light on this side of my face. Speaking of lighting though, one of the goals with this space is because it's so small, I wanted to be able to utilize every single corner of it so that I could shoot in different locations and make the most of it why it's so small. So I've got a light by my door frame here, which is just a cheap IKEA Spans light. I do, however, want to improve that and make it a real film light because the color accuracy and dealing with like fast frame rates over here isn't exactly the best. Then I've got a cheap softbox, which is from Amazon, which I'm about to upgrade. I want to get a different light for this space, but at the moment it's not too bad. I can actually film in this direction. It looks decent, and I film a lot of my TikToks over here, especially as I've got this setup which allows me to do top-down shots at this little desk. And then obviously I've got this light, which everyone always seems to ask me about. That light is the Nanlite Pavo Tube 30C. It's the version 1, I think. It's not the version 2. I would like the version 2 because it has an app and it means I can control it wirelessly and stuff, but now I've got to deal with dials and things on it instead. But as you can see, still looks good, and it's great for background lights in my main shot, but also I can use it as a main like key light for my face as well if I want to. And obviously I've got my main setup here instead, which you're so used to, and this is kind of how things look all the time. Speaking of making this space versatile and having multiple ways to film, that also meant that I had to deal with audio issues, because when I first moved into this like room and then tried to like build a setup out, it was a reverby mess because I had nothing on the walls. It's a very boxy room, it has flat walls, so when I would speak it would echo everywhere and sound terrible. So I spent the last year or so trying to sort all of that out. So I've got lots of these sound panels now around my room. I think I've got 7 of them currently. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and one above me on the ceiling, which is 7. I have an 8th one which I need to add, but I currently don't have a door on my room. Don't ask why, but I've got a curtain instead. So when I eventually add a door to the room, I'm going to add another sound panel onto the back of that to stop reflections again. But that has made it useful so that the room no longer is a reverby mess, and that means that I can shoot this way using whatever microphone I want, although I do like the sound of this one the best for this angle. But when I shoot on the other side of the room at the desk doing like top-down stuff or my TikToks and things, it doesn't sound terrible either. As I briefly said before, I love this corner setup mostly because you can see my desk setup and other stuff behind me, but also it adds some variety to my video so the audience doesn't get bored looking at the same angle constantly, because as we all know, on YouTube and TikTok people get bored within 5 seconds now, so you constantly have to have b-roll or cutaway just to keep people's attention. But also this setup's pretty good because I can do a piece to camera like this, but I can also use the camera mount on here to do a top-down view on the desk that's the back of the room. So if I'm ever showing tech or how to do something or gear reviews and something like that, I can show you the gear while playing with it with both hands. Not in that way, not on this site anyway. As I was saying, the camera mount has a top-down view so I can show off tech and gear and how to do things like that, but also it allows me to take good flat lays for thumbnails or my Instagram. One thing I do want to improve about this desk setup though is the design on it. Currently I've got like some fabric which is kind of got this weird pattern on it, which is cool, but it's a bit busy for that kind of stuff, so I want to get different either fabrics or tiles or some kind of wood or something, I don't know, something that looks a little bit different so I can change up the aesthetic when I'm doing these top-down flat lay kind of view things. Due to the fact that this room is, well, pretty small to be honest, I had to get kind of creative with how I'm storing stuff. As you can see, I've got the standard IKEA hack desk, so this is a Calby top with 2 Alex drawers. However, to make the most of this space, I had to kind of wall mount a lot of things. So as you can see here, I've wall mounted my guitars, which used to be on the floor, but they were taking up way too much space. So I've got them up here. They do add to the decoration and add a little bit of interest to my shot, but it does save me a lot of space. Also, as I was showing you earlier on, you've got this desk, which is obviously for my top-down kind of flat lay stuff, but underneath here I've got storage for like my camera bags and other such things as well, and I've wall mounted a pegboard from IKEA here, which allows me to create a way to store my batteries as well as store my headsets, my hat, and all my audio equipment that I'm not using at the time. So super useful, but I had to get very creative with how I'm keeping stuff tidy because, well, let's be honest, if I just left it on the floor, it just would be very hard to work in here and get in the way and just wouldn't look as nice and aesthetic and just make everything a little bit more difficult than it should be. And honestly, that's just the whole goal with this space. Sure, it looks nice and is great on camera, but for me, it's a space that makes it easy for me to actually create content. I can just walk into it, turn some things on, sit down and record stuff. That's something that I've honestly really struggled with over the last few years. I'm trying to be more creative, trying to be more consistent, but without a space like this, setting up lights separately and getting good audio and the camera and stuff in the right place and finding a good location that doesn't look messy is a difficult thing to do. So having this office set up in the way that it is I understand a very big privilege for me, but it does make my life a lot easier. Saying that though, this space isn't exactly perfect and I want to try and change some things up or add some more things to it to make it more functional and better for me. Like I said earlier, I want to change the light over there to something that's not a £20 one off Amazon. I'm going to hopefully buy something like an aperture light that's battery powered so I can just unhook it, move it around the house and light things in different rooms. But also I want to add more shelves and storage around the space so I can get more things off the floor, out of drawers, because, well, a lot of the time, if I don't see something I forget it's there. So I need to like wall mount things so I can see them, and I'm more likely to use the equipment that I own then, so I need to do that. I would also like to get a different audio setup. Like, I enjoy this. I love the SM7B. It sounds amazing, but I don't like the fact that it has to be in shot for it to sound good. So I'd like to get a good shotgun mic at some point. I'm not entirely sure which one, because getting really good ones can be really expensive, but at least I've got a good setup that I can just like plug it in. I don't have to buy adapters and interfaces for it already. I can just use whatever I'm using the Shure for and then just break it. Apparently, two other big purchases what I would like to make to this space, which is completely unnecessary but will help with my workflow and actual quality of work, not just for this channel but for my actual clients and wedding films and stuff like that as well. Is the first one, I want to get an ultra wide monitor. I think that would be amazing from an editing point of view, because right now I'm using a standard 16:9 one. It's fine, looks good, but I would like to get the ultra wide one because it will increase workflow. It can make my timeline a lot bigger and just be better for that, but I understand it's not necessary. And also, secondly, I'd like to improve this camera in some way. I love this camera, it's great, it has many good features. It's got a flip screen, can have a microphone on it, got good lenses and stuff, but it is an APS-C size camera and only has one SD card slot. So I would like to upgrade at some point to get to a full frame version of this that has multiple card slots, so I have two cameras that have backups on wedding days, because right now I don't trust this camera as much. I only use it for 1 or 2 sections of the day, and I don't like just having the one slot, because if that breaks then I lose all that footage and it's a mess. So backups are necessary. Anyway, I could probably talk about this space for hours, to be honest. There's loads of little details and little things in here that I find interesting, but if there's anything in here that you are interested in or have questions about, leave me a comment down below. I will try and reply to it, or I'll make another video on it in the future. If you have made it this far into the video though and you enjoyed it, remember to give me a like down below. I will really appreciate that, and also it will help me out a lot as it helps the YouTube algorithm and hopefully gets more people to see my content. If you aren't already, remember to subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading more videos like this, as well as hopefully tech tips and reviews and other such just videos about my life. So thank you for checking out the video as always. I will see you all in the next one.